Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Monster Report live here on YouTube and on Facebook. And we're so glad that you're here with us. And I'll be bringing my special guest here in just a minute. Just maybe someone in the comments section can let me know if my audio is coming through well, because it's kind of hard for me to tell with this new setup with StreamYard and all. And my guest is having a little technical difficulty, so we'll bring him in as soon as we can. But yeah, someone in the comment section, just let me know, is the audio coming through okay? Be glad to know that. And so I'm not just talking here to myself. That would be great to know. So other than that, we do have our guest, Mr. August Ragone, coming through here shortly. Jessica, thank you so much for letting me know we are coming through loud and clear. Yes, we've got all kinds of people in the chat here, so I'll just bring a couple of people in as we're getting things started. Team ROG, loosely collected, good to have you. John is saying August on, so he is here. Greetings, programs. I'm assuming that's a Tron tribute that you have there. So anyways, yeah, let us know in the comments what you'd like to hear from August. He's got all kinds of insight on Shin Ultraman. We saw that, if you got the chance to see that 10 minutes that was brought in for us to see on YouTube online, that was really cool to see. If you didn't get the chance, because I have talked to some people and they've said, you know what? I'm going to wait. I'm going to be going into this spoiler-free entirely. No trailers, no anything. And that's something that is fine. We're not going to be showing the trailer here, but we will be reacting to what we did see. And August has some really good pictures for us to show. Stay tuned as we go through this episode here to show you what's going on with Shin Ultraman in Japan. He's got some exclusive photos for us, and they are awesome. And I can't wait to get his thoughts on them as we go along here. So, as we're waiting on our guest, the Monster Report is a show highlighting those entertaining creatures of film history. My name is Nick Adam Poling. Yes, that is my name, and I'm glad to have you here today. So like, subscribe, comment, all those great things, and we're glad to answer your questions in the chat and continue on with our stream here and with our channel. The channel is in the neighborhood, I'm kind of checking right now, of 89,000 subscribers, and we're trying to get there to 100,000. That would be awesome if we're able to do that. But we are just glad that you're here anyway. So as you're getting into the chat, let us know if you've had the chance to see that Shin Ultraman, either the trailer that was dropped or the 10 minutes. Things that are kind of going on lately is just really cool to see that we're getting more kaiju content, and that is awesome, because the more kaiju content, the better. I'm always glad to see that we're that we're not just getting something every once in a while, which is fine too. Of course, we've got the name Shin Ultraman, which we've got the same director and writer as Shin Godzilla, so we've got the Anno and Higuchi combination there that's part of it, and there's a lot of cool connections that you may be able to make to Shin Godzilla, and so that is cool to see, kind of coming down the pike from Japan, from Toho. I know that there's right now going on. We have our fans. We have our fans that are joining us who might be checking out. What is it? 5 Points, I think, that's happening in New York. Our good friend Chris is over there. A lot of other kaiju fanatics are over there checking things out at that show. And definitely check out my friend Chris at the Seismic Table. He's got some really cool stuff. And of course, related to Ultraman, there's some cool stuff coming out too. He's an awesome Gyrus figure. If you haven't seen my channel, we have a review on Gyrus. And of course, if you're a Godzilla fan, that's a must-have for you. So Jody's telling me it was a lot like Shin Godzilla a bit. Okay, I think there's some things about Shin Godzilla that were, divisive, let's say. It's not everyone's cup of tea when it comes to Godzilla, a Godzilla movie. I enjoyed it. I love seeing it on the big screen. It was definitely different, but I kind of like a different flavor of things. Some kaiju fans might be fans of the Singular Point on Netflix. That wasn't bad, actually. It was just quite different, you know. Saw it looking decent so far. Yeah, those first 10 minutes that we got, I mean, it makes you excited for more Ultraman content. And so I'm excited to see, you know, what all kaiju that we're going to be seeing, you know, as we go along with Shin Ultraman and getting more content like this. Enjoy honoring the Ultra Q during the opening of Shin Ultraman. Yes, we got to have that. Just like with the Godzilla series. I remember being in the theater and seeing the Toho logo coming up and just the crowd losing it. Whether it was Godzilla 2000 when we got that in theaters, and when we got Shin Godzilla, I think they had the Toho logo. I'm not sure, but I know at least having that opening with the Godzilla in Japanese text coming up on the screen, and you know, just losing control, of course, because we're seeing a Godzilla on the big screen, which is just awesome. I love Shin. He was so overpowered and threatening. Yes, the Shin Godzilla was probably, I've been told as a quote before I got the chance to see it, this is the most destructive Godzilla you've ever seen. And it definitely proved that. So we're going to see if we can't get August maybe to call into the show. He's having just some laptop issues and what have you. You know, this always happens. This always happens when it's showtime, right? Technical glitches. I've been there. I'm a broadcaster, and it's always when it's showtime. And I'm going to see if he's having any luck getting into the stream, because you don't want to hear from me. You know, you want to hear from August, and that's why you're here. And I'll just try to keep us all entertained and keep the chat going as much as we can, and give you some information as we go along, as we're waiting on our guest to arrive. So if you haven't already, hit that like button, whether you're on Facebook or on YouTube, checking this out. And I'd love to hear from you. Get your questions ready for August. I've got a few fan questions that have submitted to me before I even considered this stream. So I've got some of those ready for August. We're not going to be able to get to all of them, but we'll get to as many as we can. Jody's asking, or letting me know, asking, makes you want more of a Shin Godzilla 2? The Dream Shin Godzilla, the Shin Gamera. Okay, yeah. I would say with this whole idea of re-releasing, rebooting, if you will, the kaiju series. They've been through reboots. We've been through, as fans, into reboots all the time, kind of starting again. Whether we make a direct sequel to the original, or we actually just say nothing existed. This is the first time we've seen Godzilla, Gamera, Ultraman, anyone. And I kind of get that vibe. I get that vibe from watching the Shin Ultraman first 10 minutes. I don't understand the language. There was a few words I could pick up. Someone who speaks the language better than I could probably pick up more of that story, but that's fine because we were watching it kind of for the action. And it had that for us, which was awesome to see. But as far as understanding what was going on, whether they were familiar with Ultraman, whether they were familiar with these kaiju already, I got that idea that there was kind of a flashback to incidents, kaiju kind of incidents that were happening in somewhat of the past, and this is like old hat for them. This is something they've already gone through, and they're just trying to weed through. Oh, it's another kaiju, just kind of like dealing with another thunderstorm, another tornado, or hurricane. Team ROG, heck yeah, I want Shin 2. Yes, I would love to see Shin 2. I would love to hear more about what happens next, because we still have something to take care of. And I don't want to spoil the movie too much. If you're here, you've probably seen it anyways. But the fact that Godzilla could come back, that he could spawn off other creatures from his lifeless body that's still there in Japan. It's possible and all that to see a Shin Godzilla 2, whether they're Godzilla humanoid looking creatures that you saw spawning off of his tail. That was so cool to see at the end of that possibly could be the case. Loosely Collected, currently working on painting 3D printed replacement parts for my Shogun Warriors Great Mazinga toy. The fact that you can 3D print, you're already up there in my books, because people who can do that, who can model in 3D and all of that is some really cool work there. And it's just getting better. First 3D prints that I saw is like, that's kind of cool actually. And now I'm seeing stuff that looks like it was, produced straight from a factory. So yeah, keep going with that. Loosely Collected. Jody, seemed like a Shin Ultra Q teamed up with Shin Ultraman, didn't it? Okay, so the team there, maybe it wasn't so clear. I think I remember seeing the pins, right, that they were wearing, which is the Science Patrol, or I think it's called SSSP, that group, that they're part of this too. And, that's, tribute to the original Ultraman, which is the one I'm most familiar with, is that first series of Ultraman. It's the one I got on DVD. They've released it for the first time on Blu-ray, and the DVD was decent. It's a television, show, so it's a decent copy of what they had, a decent print. But seeing it on Blu-ray, you're just kind of blown away by how crisp the colors are coming through and all of that. And it's just, I've seen other DVDs that later I got the Blu-rays to, or the 4Ks now, and I'm just amazed by how they can preserve or jump from off of that 35 millimeter print or whatever it was, and clean it up and get as much preserved as they can out of that. So I think it's just amazing. I'm just blown away by all of that. And so Tim Price is in the house. Tim, how are you doing? I'm glad to see you here. Do you think Shin Ultraman will have any kind of American big screen release? I'm going to tell you already, it's going to happen, and we are going to get that. I have August, and he is he's trying to see if he can find an alternative way to get in here, and we will see what we can do. Let me see. I'm going to see if I can't get him acquired over Skype, and we'll do like a screen capture or an audio capture from that, if it's possible. If not, we will figure out a one way or another. But yes, there's already been in the works, plans to see if we can't get a Shin Ultraman that's going to be released in the United States, whether that's subtitled or if it's going to be the case of that they actually get a dub going on with that. That would be cool to see. So yeah, let's see if we can't get Skype running, and if I can do yeah. Skype is way out of date. We'll get you in. One way or the other, we're going to make this work, and if we have to, we'll reschedule him for another date. But I'm really hoping that we're going to have good old Augie here as soon as we can. Anyway, so we are going to definitely get that, even if it's like Shin Godzilla. Yes, whether we get a dub or a theatrical release with subtitles, I'd be fine with either one of those. These are all files I've gathered for free elsewhere on the internet, but it's all coming together. So thank you, Loosely Collected. Yeah. Jeffrey Arnett, the opening montage had monsters that first debuted in Ultra Q, the series before Ultraman. That is correct. In fact, the cool thing about August is that you get to really get into his book, Eiji Tsuburaya, Master of Monsters. That is a great book to pick up if you haven't already. I have my copy, a signed copy of it from August, and it's just awesome to meet him. He's a cool guy to meet in person. If you've ever had the chance to interact with him, he'll talk to you about kaiju all day. And Gamera and Godzilla, and he's had the chance to be on commentaries on the DVD series releases. So he's definitely a good resource. So yeah, Ultra Q that's been also released on Blu-ray that you can grab. I think it was even at Best Buy for pretty darn cheap, actually. So I'm glad to see that we're finally getting some of this Ultraman, Ultra Q content. And whereas Ultraman really excelled in what it did, because Ultra Q was popular, but Ultra Q was popular, but Ultraman really set it apart from everything else that was happening with Ultra Q. Ultra Q was a great predecessor, and it was a good Monster of the Week series. But we wanted, we as Americans, we wanted a monster series that had a hero to it, and so Ultraman was born, and so that was awesome to see that. Getzilla 2000, which is also Tim Price. Tim Price, by the way, is an author of Big in Japan 1 and 2. Get his book. Check him out on social media. He is also an awesome man who has a faith-based ministry that is all dedicated to people in recovery, and that's definitely something I would recommend supporting. A great G fan, helping out those in need. He's been there, and so he knows how to relate to those who are in recovery for substance abuse and all that, so support him with that. So a little shout out to Tim. Do you think Shin Ultraman will have any kind of big... Oh yeah, you've said that already. I've gotten that. Must be in another chat here. I think I got into Ultraman from Ultraman Tiga on Fox Kid years ago. That's interesting because for me, it was Ultraman Towards the Future that got me into Ultraman. And, it was that awesome. If you haven't seen it, it's that Australian release of Ultraman, which apparently it was never actually released in Australia itself, but it had an Australian cast, and they were speaking with their Aussie accents, and I think it had some really good... I think there was only 9 episodes or something, and it had some really good fight scenes in it, and a really good Ultraman actor in that as well. Jeffrey Arnett, I would like to see a release similar to Shin Godzilla, perhaps. That would be awesome to see. So yeah, we're all clamoring for it. Any of you peeps coming to San Diego Comic-Con, hoping they have a Toho booth again, let Jody know. I imagine, Jody, you'll be going to that, so if anyone's there, look up Jody. Don Gully Jr., Godzilla Nerds 1954 on YouTube and on Facebook. Check out his channel. Glad to have him here. And while I'm waiting on my guest, again, technical glitches, again, always happens when you go live. I'll keep you guys satisfied with the... Is it pronounced Mego or Mego? I don't know. I don't collect these toys, but it's one that I found recently, and I thought, why not? Let's do a giveaway. So what I'd like is somebody to give me an Ultraman fact that's in the comments section. Wait till we get August. Wait till we get August in here first, and see if it's something that maybe he either didn't know or finds particularly interesting, and we will do that as a giveaway. But wait until we get August, one way or the other. So we will read those chats out loud and get that as a giveaway. So again, this could be free for someone in the chat today, and I will announce that again when we get our guest in the house. Like to get him in the green room even at that point. Neil, it's pronounced Mego. Okay, Thank you. I remember mispronouncing NECA as Nika once. I don't know. I didn't collect it until that point, and then when I got into it, I got it. It's Nika, and then they stopped producing Godzilla toys. Well, oh well. So, Godzilla, thanks for the kudos, Nick. Big in Japan 3 is in the making, so there's a book that you'll want to get in your collection. Jody, just want to get to Japan for the Ultraman burgers in Mickey D's. They have Ultraman burgers at their McDonald's in Japan. Well, why don't we here? I wonder what they look like. If you're able to send me a picture, I'd be interested in seeing what that looks like. Don, personal opinion, I believe Ultraman started the multiverse. Yeah, maybe. It's possible. The whole multiverse idea has been around a while, so it's interesting to know where it may or may not have started. Jody, okay, so if you are going to San Diego Comic-Con, if so, let him know. A Shin drinking group, I'll be on staff of San Diego Comic-Con taking photos, hopefully not drinking. Don, it's pronounced me go, as Neil put it. Fact, Ultraman is awesome. You may be getting that just based on that. We'll see. Let's get our guest in here, and I'll have him help me with that giveaway. And I will pay for the shipping and everything. You'll just have to let me know your address once we get to that point, okay? And you'll send it to me in a private message or email. Mego made all the DC superhero dolls back in the 70s. Okay, so they've been around a while. Yes, it's Mego. Thank you. Here's something while we're waiting. Is it pronounced de-fo-real or de-fo-real? And I use both, actually. And actually, I've got an episode coming out soon, maybe even tomorrow, of the Godzilla 1984 with the little reactor. And he's holding the reactor that lights up. His dorsal fins lights up. And I called it defo-real, but I think I even later said defo-real. So it's kind of like, yeah. So still trying to get August in. I think he's getting a little closer. We'll see. If we have to, I'll have him give me a call on the phone, and we'll use the audio piped right from my phone if we have to. Keep that chat going as I'm going along, and I will get you in as quick as we can. Okay, we're going to get him in here one way or another. Yes, almost ready. Okay, so we'll keep going with some of the chat. Team ROG. Ultraman is one Monster Arts I'm aiming to get. Yes, Monster Arts does some really great stuff. They also brought over Takarada Toys, Microman. Oh, he's talking about Mego. Microman Tossie, which is Mego renamed as the Micronauts. Stand by, ladies and gentlemen. Hello.
Hey, this is August.
Hey, August. I'm going to figure out if I can get you piped, your audio piped in here. We've got some people in the chat who are happy to hear from you, so let me see what I can do here. So if you just stand by for a minute.
Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to be hands-free if I'm on the phone.
Okay, yeah, so your browser is just not being friendly with your with that StreamYard link, is it?
No. So, I mean, well, Chrome crashed, then it froze the computer, and then I rebooted it, and then I opened up Chrome again. It did the same thing.
Okay.
So, I have Skype open.
Yeah.
That would be a way to do it hands-free, but your Skype is not working.
Yeah, so I tried launching Skype, and it's unfortunately out of date. I'm really sorry about that. One way or the other.
Yeah, I'm sorry that, if I wish I had known that it was, StreamYard was Chrome only.
Oh, it is? Oh, okay. And
because when I went to it through Safari, it said you need a Chrome.
Oh, is it? Yeah.
And my Chrome browser. There's something wrong with it, so I don't use it.
Gotcha.
So I just use Safari. So that was where the monkey wrench got tossed in the works.
I see. I'm going to see if I can't pipe your audio in through this, if it's possible. We'll give it a try. I'm sorry you won't be hands-free, but maybe we can at least kind of work through it if we can.
Yeah.
Okay, stand by. We'll see if we can't get this into my mixing board here. Okay, trying to connect to it. Okay. And I'm not sure, August, if you're able to hear me or not, if you could talk to me a little bit. I think the audio is piping through, but it is hard to tell.
Check 1 2. Check 1 2 3.
I have to switch my headphones. Okay, talk to me again.
Check 1 2 3. 1 2 3 4.
I can hear you. It's a little on the quiet side, but if there is anyone in the chat that can let us know, are you hearing August? Talk to me, August, and maybe tell me a little about yourself as we're testing audio here.
Well, we'll just do 6 7 8 9 10 5 4 3 2 1.
I'm getting people in the chat
10,
that
11
are saying
12
they
13
can hear
14.
you.
Okay.
Excellent.
Well, all I have to say to open this up is Alien Zarab crashed my computer.
Aliens.
Just like he did to the Science Patrol.
Oh, right.
In episode 18.
Those aliens, they can never play nicely, can they?
Those annoying aliens.
Yes.
If they all only just look like Lum.
Well, I've got some people in the chat that have some questions ready, but I would like, as we're kind of getting things started here, just tell me a little of your background. I've did introduce them as the author of Eiji Tsuburaya, Master of Monsters, the great book that they should all pick up, and maybe you could point them towards where they can pick that book up. But just give us a little of your background, your kaiju background, and why we got you as the Ultraman expert today.
All right, thank you. Well, hey, again, thanks for inviting me on the show, Nick. I really appreciate it. Well, that all started when, like most of us, when we were kids. You see this stuff on TV or in a movie theater and your life has changed, And so when I was a kid, I saw Ultraman when I was about 5 years old. I'd already seen a couple of Godzilla movies, but Ultraman was coming in, to my living room, into my living room every day, Monday through Friday. And, and it ruined my life. So, and really set me on this path of aimlessness and complete waste of my life. So when I was a kid, I was so interested in mostly who made these things and why were they made and how they came about. And so that's what I really kind of got into. There wasn't a lot of information. There was zero information in English in those days. So eventually I discovered Japantown when I was in grammar school, probably like 4th or 5th grade. We went on a school field trip, and the next thing you know, this whole new world was open to me, because then I found out there was more than one Ultraman. And there were all these books in Japanese bookstores, at San Francisco's Japantown, and records and toys. And so I just started, like some kids get into sports and they can tell you all the baseball stats. I just got deep into this stuff, and from that point on, because I just became a Japantown loiterer, and then I started exchanging letters with Greg Shoemaker, the late Greg Shoemaker of the Japanese Fantasy Film Journal, and then I started writing. I kind of started writing some stuff, but the first exposure was when I was 14 years old. I was asked to come on the Creature Feature show, which was our local horror host show. And it was I was asked, I had sent a letter in, and said, hey, here's some information on a bunch of upcoming Godzilla movies, because the host asked for it on air. Mm-hmm. And so I got a call back. They wanted me to come on the show. Godzilla versus Megalon was coming to theaters. And so I went on the show, and I guess I did a good job, because I kept getting asked back. And the horror host was Bob Wilkins at KTVU Channel 2 in San Francisco. And then he started dubbing me a Godzilla expert or Japanese fantasy or Japanese film expert on the air. And I appeared on his show a number of times. And he also did a daily kids show that showed Ultraman and Johnny Sacco, which was called Captain Cosmic. And I ended up being on that show like 24 times.
Wow.
And just talking about this stuff and bringing on books in my collection of books and posters and magazines. And that's how that started. And then Bob also got me to start we did a Godzilla fan club that was advertised on the air. And then we did a first of several Japanese fantasy film fair mini conventions where we just showed all kinds of great stuff, everything from the Star Blazers animated series to Ultraman and stuff we were getting from Japanese pen pals. And I started writing for the Japanese Fantasy Film Journal, and it all went from there.
Oh, wow.
So you could say I've been in the trenches a long time. And so I consequently was getting all these Japanese books and magazines and whatnot, and then learning how to read the language because I wanted to know what these magazines were saying. Because the staff at a lot of these stores in Japantown were getting annoyed. I kept asking them, what does it say? so I decided, well, I not only asked them for like, could you just tell me what this caption says? I wasn't asking them for paragraphs, but that felt kind of intruding. And then I went, well, maybe I should pick up the language myself. I was probably about 10 years old. And so I started doing that and then discovering what all this stuff was about and learning about mostly like some kids, like I said, are interested in like whose monster is stronger than the other monster and whatnot. The sort of the fantasy world of it, which I had access to now more of at that point. And, but I wanted to know who the people were, who made these shows. So that's how all that got started. And eventually working on Markalite magazine in the 90s, putting that together and with Bob Johnson of Sci-Fi Japan. I think he's still with Sci-Fi Japan. I have no idea. And then eventually, doing Henshin Online and blah, 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 and so forth. And annoying people everywhere.
Oh, well, yeah. That's you got to do that. You got to go to the go to the cons and meet the other fans that are out there and test your knowledge. Which interestingly, in the chat, I'm going to read these for you. I don't know if you're able to see what's going on.
I can see. I'm on. Yeah. Okay. I can see the chat.
So yeah, Jeffrey Arnett was watching Creature Features today when he saw August was going to be on the show discussing Shin Ultraman, and this is his perfect Sunday. So Jeffrey,
thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, Jeffrey.
Yeah, the Creature Features. Yeah. I'm going to have to check that out. Where can we watch them? YouTube or are they out there?
Well, there's very little surviving footage. There's one of my segments from the Captain Cosmic show. There's random, if you just type in on YouTube like Bob Wilkins or Creature Features, you'll find it. There's also a couple of documentaries that are out there. There's a brand new one called Staying Up All Night with Bob Wilkins, I believe it's called.
Okay.
I'm probably murdering that title. But that's a brand new documentary that has just come out from, you can probably find that at the official website, which is bobwilkins.com. I believe, or bobwilkins.net. I didn't know I was going to do a Bob Wilkins quiz, but I would have had the actual rightful information. But so yeah, it's you can find Bob Wilkins Creature Features out there for your Creature Features freaks, as we used to call ourselves, and still do. So yeah, that's how you just. There's a couple of documentaries. Watch Horror Films, Keep America Strong is the other documentary that was made on Bob Wilkins. There's another documentary on the horror host history made about 15 years ago, maybe 10, 12 years ago, called That's the other one. That's called American Scary. Okay. And that has a Bob Wilkins segment in it as well.
Yeah.
So anyway, excellent. Moving right along.
Start with Bob Wilkins and go from there, and you can find this information out and see these documentaries. That's great information. I was telling him, I was just leafing again through the book. Of the Eiji Tsuburaya, Master of Monsters. I want to say it came out, what was that, 2014 maybe, or 13?
Well, the first edition came out in 2007.
Okay.
And that was a hardcover, and then we did the updated and revised version in 2014.
Okay, that is the version I got. I had you sign it at G-Fest. Thank you very much. The next year,
well, thank you.
Yeah, well, in the next year, it was funny because I was actually on my way to G-Fest. It's about a 6-hour drive for me to Chicago, and my car broke down. I needed a new battery, and while I was waiting, I just sat there in the waiting room of the mechanic's place and just started reading about Ultraman and Eiji Tsuburaya, and was just I was just enthralled with the amount of information that you were able to gather for that book. And it's just, I mean, if you want to know Eiji Tsuburaya from beginning to end, even the work he did on the Pacific, the war, what was it called? War in the Pacific, I think. The special effects he did.
Oh yeah, right. He did a number of World War II movies that were made during the war. That basically the government comes to Toho Studios and and says, you're going to make a bunch of propaganda movies, and you guys can't say no. It's like that's the way. That's sort of what was going on in good old Deutschland at the same time.
Well, yeah.
And Hollywood was doing propaganda films, but nobody was forcing anybody to make them. So yeah, there was those, and then there were some post war films made during the 50s and 60s, which were not. At first, you might think that they would be, pro-war, but they weren't. They were very factual and showing, and basically the summation of those films was war is hell, and it wasn't good, and it didn't turn out well, So they're very sober films. They're not, patriotic films. The ones that were made in the 60s, the 50s and 60s. So Tsuburaya worked on a lot of those. In fact, the big pool, as they called it at Toho Studios, where Godzilla came out of the sea many times, that pool was constructed for one of those war films.
Oh, okay. And I was going to say the shots that you have in your book that have the Pearl Harbor scene that was recreated, which was right. That must have been in that pool.
Yeah, that was for the 1942 film, The War at Sea from Hawaii to Malaya.
And in fact, I've heard. Go ahead.
Oh, which I was just going to say that's just gotten a 4K transfer restoration, beautiful. And it's going to be airing on Japanese cable like next month or in August.
Oh wow, yeah, that will look great to see that. And I know that it was a film that looked so convincing that people thought it was documentary footage, correct? Not that it was actually.
Yeah, that was kind of like the legend that it was. I mean, there's some of it that's really convincing, and some of it is obvious. That they're miniatures. So but and not obvious in a bad way, in a negative way. It's like. You just know it's not a real ship or a real building blowing up, but it looks really good,
Yeah, absolutely.
There was a big legend at one time that they thought that actual footage from the Zeros raiding Pearl Harbor, that the footage was directly from that. Yeah. But it was all Tsuburaya special effects, So.
Yeah, some of these stories become embellished, I think, over time, and especially when it's filmmakers and they really want to push their product. Obviously, we're going to get some chats out of the way here, and then we're going to talk some Ultraman. Loosely Collected, it's his birthday. Happy birthday! And it seemed like a fun thing to check in on this today. So thank you for joining us, Don Gully Jr.
Yeah, thank you, and happy birthday.
Yes, right from August himself. Don Gully Jr., who also has a YouTube channel. August, I must say your excitement and joy for discussing genre is absolutely amazing. It's giving me a lot of motivation and inspiration. And if you're a Godzilla fan and you haven't dabbled into Ultraman yet, now's the time, because we're going to be discussing it. And I can see a lot more Ultraman content coming out. We've got Doc Locke. August is a great example of success, doing what he truly loves since he was a kid to this very day. He's done so much good and bringing awareness for Japanese sci-fi. Thank you, bro, Sal. So, Sal, thank you for joining us.
Appreciate it.
Yes. And also, before we get into Ultraman, just briefly, with the releases that are out there, maybe some of our viewers have the Shout Factory Gamera series, and I know you've done commentary at least on a couple of those. Can you talk a little briefly about Shout Factory and some of the releases that are out there? And,
right.
Yep.
Yeah, I did a lot of stuff. Right, I've done a lot of stuff with Shout Factory going back to about 2009. So we did the Gamera films. I put all the special features together for those. We were working on, it's a whole long, every story is not simple. They're all long-winded and complicated. But to sum it up in the Reader's Digest version is that we were going to do audio commentaries for all of the Showa, original line of Gamera films. And unfortunately, because fans were also asking, and as they always do, collectors and fans go like, are you going to include all the dubs, right? Yeah. Because there was the Sandy Frank dub and the American International Pictures dubs, and then like sometimes some of them would be dubbed in Asia, by American actors. They would like Toho or Daiei would commission these other studios to dub the films for them, like the notorious international dub of Destroy All Monsters that Toho commissioned. Remember that storm a few years ago? Well, okay, yeah. Well, what does it have to do with the monsters breaking at Ogasawara Island? I don't know. So we were going to do that, and then the bean counters at Shout Factory decided that instead of, we were going to do all standalone releases for each film, from Gamera to Gamera versus, or to I think Space Monster, to Super Monster Gamera or Space Monster Gamera. And then they decided, well, why don't we just do double feature them after the first one? So we did audio commentary for the first one. I got an audio commentary for Baragon, which was released as a standalone disc, but the rest of the films were all double featured. And because they were going to have multiple audio tracks, with trying to include all the dubs they could, we kind of got squeezed out of doing the commentaries for the rest of those. So that kind of sucked in one way, but it was great because people got more than one dub, and the original Japanese audio. So that was good. That's the plus factor. And that's the more important factor than hearing some, guy just rattle on about the movie, as somebody who didn't make it, just rattling off about it. But then we turned around and when Arrow Video, actually I should sidestep that Shout Factory. A couple years later, we did a Gamera marathon for Shout Factory TV, and I did segments introducing all of the original Gamera films. And I think we also did the Kaneko. Yeah, we did the Kaneko films as well. So we did the original Gamera to Super Monster, and then the Gamera trilogy from Kaneko. And so I did segments for all those, and then Arrow Video got the rights to do the Blu-ray set and include everything. And they wanted to use the Shout Factory stuff that we already recorded and used for that marathon, streaming marathon. And then for some reason, I said, they wanted me to sign off on it. And I said, yeah, that'll be fine. And then they came back and said, how about if you just re-record all of them? We'd rather have you just re-record. We'll put them as on-screen introductions at the beginning of each movie on all the discs. And I was like, okay. So we started doing that. I had a chance to rewrite some of the stuff and go through it, and clean them up a little bit. And when we recorded it, the pandemic lockdown happened. So we recorded all the films up to Gamera the Brave. And then we weren't able to do an intro for Gamera the Brave because of the lockdown. Yeah. Originally we thought, hey, we're going to be shut down for 3 weeks. Maybe we can get back to it after that. 3 weeks turned into a year and a half.
So, yeah.
So those got, so we went from Shout Factory, and then, some of the stuff got ported, the Shout Factory TV marathon, and ported over to the Arrow video discs in terms of Gamera.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I got to tell you that I still bust out the Shout Factory because just those translations and all that. Obviously, the Arrow collection is beautiful with the beautiful artwork that's in there and all of the, just extras that you get with it. And being able to, switch audio tracks to something that was familiar to you. But I got to say that Gamera versus Barugon, that's the commentary I can't listen to enough because it's just fascinating, and that's one of my favorites to check out and watch over and over again. So we'll get to some Ultraman here in a second. Godzilla Fan Freaks is in the house, and good to have you all in here, and Don's still here, and just so switching over to Ultraman.
I just want to can I interject 1 second?
Absolutely.
I just want to before I forget, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that and stress the fact that Barugon audio commentary was done by myself and Jason Varney, who's also another big super fan who grew up watching all this stuff on TV back in the day. And Jason and I think we had a really good rapport doing that audio commentary. We had a hell of a lot of fun, and the engineer on that was a friend of mine, and we had him laughing so much that because we weren't making fun of the movie, but we were like pointing out things and making jokes. But, just jokes. We were laughing with the film, not at the film. Mm-hmm. There's a difference. It wasn't like MST, right. Which I've got some MST cred too. So I'm not putting them down. Don't send hate mail. And Jason and I just had a blast doing that, and sharing, doing the research and all that. So then we were both nominated. That audio commentary was nominated for a Rondo. It didn't get it, because it's always going to be, Tim Lucas from Video Watchdog. He's always going to win every audio commentary award. That's just the way it goes. But it was a lot of fun, and I thank you for enjoying that.
Yes, that's the one that I always keep coming back to, even though I've heard it so many times. And but yeah, I would have said that the Rondo would have won. Now I know you are a Rondo award winner for something else. Well, was it the book?
No. Unfortunately, Tim Lucas's book. Tim Lucas again. Tim Lucas's book, All the Colors of the Dark, is gigantic, like 500-page. It weighs like 25 pounds. Biography and filmography of the great Italian genre director Mario Bava came out that same year. So there was no way. I mean, somebody could have come out with the greatest book on the making of the original Godzilla, fully illustrated, which Toho would never allow, but in the States. But, you could put out something like that, and it would be just as fat and thick, and Tim Lucas would still win, because it's just Tim Lucas.
I see. Okay.
And they just did an amazing job. That book is just like insane. But if my book had come out a year before or a year after, I may have had a better chance, but there was no way anybody was going to win that year. It was, again, Tim Lucas. You, Tim Lucas.
Oh, well, yeah, it is what it is. I've been nominated, but for the Rondo as well. So just being able to say you were nominated.
Yeah.
Is
yeah,
great.
But I did get the two that I won were both for Famous Monsters, the 2000s incarnation of Famous Monsters of Filmland magazine. And we started working with them. I started working with them in 2010. So the first one was for the interview that I did with Haruo Nakajima, the man who played Godzilla, back in with the 2011 award. And then I got a 2014 award for the complete Godzilla chronology, which I was the editor on. I got all these different writers in there to write a review about every film. I contributed several reviews. So the first one that we got for the Nakajima interview was the first Rondo Award that Famous Monsters, under the editorialship of Philip Kim, ever won. So that was the very first one they won, and that was for our first all Japanese Monsters issue that I put together with them. So it was a lot of fun, and it was very good honor to get those awards for, with being, for Famous Monsters at that time. It was a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, well deserved with that, and I know you're still, just a vast, resource of knowledge when it comes to Ultraman. So we're going to talk about some Shin Ultraman, and if we do get some classic Ultraman, that's great. I'm sure it'll kind of translate a little bit into that. But whether you've seen, whether you've seen, I know you have, but whether the fans out there have seen those first 10 minutes or not is no big deal, because this film, unlike other films, doesn't start out slow. It really dives you right into the action with those first 10 minutes. And that's not a spoiler. It's just the way that they've already presented this. And so with those first 10 minutes, and I know you've had the chance to see a little bit more, what is your reaction to all of that?
Right. Well, I pretty much already know the entire story of the film, not just the story, but just the entire narrative, all the arcs, Mm-hmm. So it's basically, I've spoiled the entire movie for myself already.
You have.
So,
okay.
Yeah. And I have seen most of all the fight scenes in the movie, except for the final fight, the final battle. So let's just talk about the first 10 minutes, and we can address that other part. So the first 10 minutes I thought was, obviously very strong. They do obviously, it's a tribute to the opening paint, what we call in America the paint swirl.
Right. Yep.
And where the titles reveal Ultraman, and as many fans have found out since, the Japanese versions were released in the United States in like 2004, 2005 by, that was a BCI Eclipse originally. Mm-hmm. And then eventually that was carried over by Mill Creek a few years later. And then the current ones, but that you see that the paint swirl turns into forming the Japanese wording for Ultra Q, the previous series to Ultraman, the precursor to Ultraman, and then a burst, like a sort of like a cartoon burst, and then the title changes to Ultraman, and it's subtitled, fantasy special effects series underneath Ultraman. So they do the same thing with Shin Ultraman, and it opens up though with the paint swirl, but it doesn't say Ultra Q, and it might have gone past most people, and it's the paint swirl forms into Shin Godzilla, and then the burst happens, and then it says Shin Ultraman.
Interesting. Huh.
Yeah. So Anno said originally, not originally, but in the development of this movie, that he wanted to connect it directly to Shin Godzilla. But since, it's a Tsuburaya venture,
right,
with Toho, that there's, some, we can't really do that. It's like, the legalese is kind of, Mm-hmm. So they weren't able to make a direct connection, but they were allowed that little bit with the swirl, And of course, in the first 10 minutes, you have this quick opening montage that's about a minute and a half or so of like how monsters started springing up, and then that caused the need for the SSSP to be formed, or this version of the Science Patrol,
right?
And those were all sort of remakes from Ultra Q, so they were allowed to make the Shin Gomez, which is the monster from the first episode of Ultra Q, which was a heavily redressed Godzilla costume. And it just looks like, forget it. Look it up. You can Google it if you don't know what I'm talking about. I'm not going to describe it for 15 minutes. I'd get it wrong anyway. But they heavily redressed Godzilla suit. So for the opening montage in this movie, Shin Ultraman, what they did is they used the model as Shin Godzilla and redressed it as Gomez. So they got two little things in there, but no direct dialogue or anything that couldn't allude to the other film directly as part of the narrative.
I noticed that with the teeth, the way that the teeth were in the face looking directly at the camera, I was definitely seeing Shin Godzilla in that design.
Right. So they just basically took a model of Shin Godzilla. I think they said they couldn't use, because of some proprietary thing, that they couldn't just reuse one of the models they already had, one of the CAD models.
Okay.
So they had to just create a new one. They just couldn't just use the CAD redress, I believe. I don't know I'd like to find out a little more about that. I haven't really gotten into too much deep behind the scenes stuff, but there's some nuggets that I was really interested in that I can drop. They might contain spoilers. I don't know how the audience feels about that, but we're already talking about spoilers because it's the first 10 minutes of this movie. And
That's right.
So they have this montage that segues into the formation of the SSSP. And then all of a sudden the action just segues to like now, and it doesn't start with a slow, fade in like now, 15 years later or anything like that. It pretty much goes into the action that the SSSP are in the field. They're in a military hut that's been constructed on site from some strange occurrences. They've listed the phenomena as kaiju, but it's not kaiju as rendered in the Japanese characters. That means strange animal or weird animal. It's not, they use different kanji for kaiju. And I'm going to have to look that up. I was going to do that for the show, but I totally spaced on that. But these guys are investigating the phenomena that's happening in this town. There's all kinds of electrical disturbances going on. And then you see, or not see, the invisible monster Naranga appear. And Naranga starts tearing everything up. They are able to shut down the power grid, so he can't feed off he can't feed off the electrical current from a substation. And Naranga goes nuts and starts wrecking the town. And all of a sudden, this thing falls from the sky. They go, there's something coming in. It's going to crash near the site. What the hell is this? It crashes. And then through the smoke and everything, this Ultraman rises. And they don't know what it is. They've never seen it before. So this all happens within the first couple minutes of the movie. And then Ultraman, as you saw in the trailers, I think there's a photo I gave you that trailer photo.
Yes, I'm looking through them right now and presenting them. So if there's one you want to call up, I have the one that's Zoffy, where it's kind of grayscale and blue scale.
Right, but there's specifically one that's trailer 01 and trailer 02.
Yes, and where he's in the smoke. Mm-hmm.
Right, if you can go to trailer 01.
Yep. It's up and ready.
Okay, so that's what you see in the trailer. Now, the trailer that everybody saw and watched 8,000 million times, they pulled a fast one. Because in the trailer, they didn't show you what Shin Ultraman really looks like when he first appears. So they substituted the animation, the CG animation for the trailer. And if you go to trailer 02.
Yep. There it is.
I have 01 up, but 02?
Yeah, it should be 02. It should be being displayed.
Okay,
you might be on a delay.
Right. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. I was assuming there was a delay. So sorry about that.
It's okay.
So here's the shot we see in the trailer. He's firing at Naranga. And that's what it looks like in the trailer. But if you go to actual film 1 and actual film 2, we'll see what it looks like in the real film. Now, this is what everybody's image of Ultraman is. That's the C-type mask that was used in the latter third of the series.
There's the profile that I see. Let me expand so I can see the names of my thumbnails here. So,
right.
Yeah, there's like Type A preparing Spacium, maybe, or there's the Type A profile.
I had trailer and then an actual film, so it would be like Shin Ultraman actual. There it is. I see. There's 2, but where's 1?
Yeah, it's coming below? Up. Yeah, it's the very bottom of the list. Yeah.
Great. All right. So it doesn't look like much difference between the 2 shots. And this is from the actual film. And you can't see the stripes on Ultraman's body. In the trailer, you can see the red stripes. And this, you can't see it. They're very, very faint, but they're almost like the same color as Ultraman's body, which is in this point of the film when he first lands is not silver. He's kind of like a lead color. And the lines are very faint. So we can go to actual film 2.
Okay. There we are.
Okay. And so when he fires his Spacium beam, you're going to notice. So that's how it looks in the trailer.
Oh, okay.
So then there should be another one. I just saw it on the side there.
Is it maybe Type A preparing Spacium?
No, it's a couple down. No, I just saw it a minute ago.
I apologize.
Scroll back up. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, we'll figure this out. I'm just in love with these photos, though. So
these are actual shots from the film.
Okay, I see it. There's the trailer JPEG where he's firing the Spacium and he's more of the silver look.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Okay, so that's what he looks like in the actual film compared to the trailer. It's the A mask, which was originally on the original series. They did the mask out of latex because their idea was it was an experiment, and Tsuburaya loved experimenting. Even when other people on the staff would go, well, this might not work exactly, but Tsuburaya would say, but this is going to be fun. This is going to be fun. Let's just try it. Let's just give it a go. Why be afraid? Just put ourselves out there. So the first mask originally was latex because they wanted the mouth to move because Ultraman would either talk more. That was one of the ideas. And then he was originally, and I write about this in my book, I have the whole back on the creation of the Ultraman series and Ultra Q before as well, is that Ultraman would fire something called silver iodide out of his mouth.
Right.
So Ultraman would spit, essentially vomit on monsters before they came up with the Spacium ray. That was an early idea. It was scrapped before they, were actually writing the episodes. But they wanted the mouth to move. And in the first 13 episodes, you can kind of see it, that it does move. The mask is very, not spongy, but it's pot marked. And so they just decided, well, this experiment isn't working. The moving mouth isn't registering on film. They weren't able to see it, as much. You couldn't really tell it was happening, it wasn't very visible. So they decided to go with the static mask after that, starting with episode 14. But anyway, so this is what he looks like when he first appears in the film, the first 10 minutes. So you can see how the Ultraman stripes are just basic shaded in lines of the same lead color. So it's kind of interesting that they did that. So that's pretty much the opening. He blasts the Spacium ray at Naranga, and then it goes to another title card where the film's going to start. So, and that's where the clip ends. But that's not all about that, about this film either.
Obviously.
There's a lot going on that they try to jam into this film. It's essentially 5 different stories that were taken from the original series and sort of updated or modernized, kind of through almost, I would have to say, because this was written by Hideaki Anno. It's kind of through almost his Evangelion lens,
Yeah.
Some of the fight scenes look like an Evangelion fight. I'm not really keen on one or two of the things that I saw, but there's a shot in here. I think we got a shot of him kicking feet, with Mesios.
Yes.
We can pull that up. We appreciate your patience. Please stand by.
Yes.
There it is. So that's very Eva to me. And it's also, I guess, part of the problem, I guess, for me personally. Other people are digging it. There have been some critics in Japan, not critics, but reviews out of Japan from fans and from professionals that, that weren't that keen on some of the CGI, and I mean, the story's fine, apparently. People are digging what the movie's telling. There's some great stuff in there, but it's the problem with not really the problem, but let's just say it's this situation with Japanese films. Japanese films are basically made for a domestic audience. If they sell it to foreign territories, that's just a plus. it's not like Hollywood making movies for a global audience where they're willing to spend, $300 million on a film. In Japan, producers are very tight with money. They want to play it safe so nobody goes bankrupt. And, a lot of their films don't get exported,
Yeah.
And one could say, well, if they made a really big budget movie, I'm sure somebody in Hollywood would release it. But that's a what if, it's real what if. Those days are long over. I mean, even with anime and manga being so popular in the United States at an all-time high now, you still aren't having nationwide releases of anime films. They're all, fandom events, 2 nights only,
Yeah,
maybe
limited
2
release.
showings if you're lucky. Very limited releases. So something like this would only get a limited release, and there's only so much money they're going to make out of it. Films like this would play better in Europe, but the audiences aren't big enough, to the degree of the United States, if it opened in 2,000 theaters across the United States all at once, which is not going to happen because people just don't go see foreign films like this anymore. I mean, a lot of times we think now from today's perspective that, we're more advanced, we're more forward thinking. We know better than people back in the 50s or 60s. But back in the 50s and 60s, these kind of movies were playing in theaters from coast to coast. The Godzilla films, the Toho films, Rodan, for example, was released in the United States in 1957.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a time when there were many science fiction films being released from American studios too, and very few foreign films. The Japanese films were becoming the big import, except for, the Hammer horrors from the UK.
Yeah.
But the kind of monster picture that Toho was making, you would have maybe an occasional Harryhausen movie every few years, and you would have the rest of them were okay. The stories might have been great, and but the monster might not have been that fantastic. The special effects might not have been that fantastic. And then you'd have things like the Giant Claw, which terrible, terrible. In fact, I went to a convention when I was 17, and Jeff Morrow, the star of the Giant Claw, was there talking about his work on classic sci-fi, horror, fantasy films like Kronos, which is a great movie from that period. And he said that then when they had no idea, they were told that the monster was going to look great, and originally they were going to get Harryhausen to do it, and Harryhausen passed.
Yeah.
It was a Columbia Picture, and he was working for Columbia Pictures at that time. And when they went to see the quote-unquote premiere with an audience, the actors were so horrified when they saw the special effects that they walked out. They snuck out of the theater. They just went, "Let's get the hell out of here." And they all went to a bar and got they went to a bar and got hammered. Wow. So what's my god darn point about all this stuff? So we as fans will accept a lot of things. We can go, oh, I forgot to tell you about Rodan. So Rodan was the highest grossing science fiction movie in the United States for the year 1957. It was the #1 top grossing film, science fiction, horror, and fantasy.
Really? Okay.
It beat every other film in rental and ticket sales. So Rodan was a huge hit, and that's verified by, Box Office Barometer magazine at the time, Box Office magazine. It's all documented. It's not just copy and pasted from Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Or someone said on the internet, But so these movies at that time became big, and that the releases of those films were still popular for about a decade. And then they started falling out of favor in the late 60s. And then there was the revival of Godzilla and Japanese monster stuff on television in the late 60s, starting in the late 60s, but really taking off in the early 70s. And that's when all that boomed again. And then Star Wars came, and not because the year before Star Wars opened, one of the top grossers for kids in 1976 was Godzilla versus Megalon. It made a crap ton of money. Had a huge nationwide release. There were billboards in my neighborhood. There was a billboard. It wasn't the biggest billboard, but it was still a billboard for Godzilla versus Megalon. And I was like, wow, they took out a billboard for this movie,
Right.
And it made a lot of money, man. The first day it opened, I think, it opened in at least 3 theaters in San Francisco proper, which is a city of only 7 by 7 miles. It opened in 3 theaters and a drive-in, just in San Francisco itself. And it just, I went the first day at one of the 3 theaters, and the place was packed, and the fans were yelling so loud during that movie and cheering that at points it drowned the soundtrack of the film out.
Wow.
So it was insane. Then the next year Star Wars opens, and then people started selling off their Godzilla collections for Star Wars stuff, and I benefited from that. So I was like, okay, let's sell them to Ragone, he'll buy it.
Yeah.
So blah, blah, blah. So, it's, I would be hard pressed to say it would be a great hope to get something like Shin Ultraman released to a wide market. But, it's like American audiences today don't want to sit through a film. And back then, you could dub them and people were fine with that.
Right.
But you can't, something like this, the fans would balk if it was dubbed. And if it's subbed, you're going to lose a lot of people that would just like, casual people or just the general audience.
Yeah.
Would not want to maybe sit through subtitles. The fans will always sit through subtitles if that's what you got. That's what they're going to take. And so, that would be great.
It all comes down to can they sell it? Right. I mean, it's
yeah. So we'll see. Maybe I would predict something close to something like a Fathoms release might happen, or the same that was happened with, Funimation and with their theatrical run of Shin Godzilla. Maybe we could get something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at least with Funimation being able to promote it the way they did, and then we got our DVD release with the dub. So I was there, with the fans going far and wide to find the theater, the few theaters that were able to show it, and I feel like the fans would do that with this. But yeah, it does come down to the almighty dollar. Can this sell? American filmmakers, of course, they're already thinking, I'm spending $200 million on this film. What does a Japanese film usually budget for these? I mean, they're probably lucky to get 10 to 15. I don't know. In American dollars.
It's always in that neighborhood. They don't really creep too much higher than that, and sometimes lower. I think there was, since you have, what they have to do to make these films too now in Japan. Even Toho can't produce a movie on its own. They have to go into partnerships. They have to go into partnerships with other studios and publishers. So there's always, like, you'll see in the credits, like the Shin Godzilla production committee or whatever the movie is, production committee. And that's a conglomerate of all these different people who have their fingers in the pie, like publishers who want to have exclusive content for their magazines or put out books based on that movie. And, Bandai is always in there somewhere. And, Bandai's actually the evil corporate empire in there that, controls everything. And all these different companies. So they have to get funding from all these different places. And so, the days of like a studio just making a film, even Tsuburaya Productions, they have to have partners. They have to have money coming from somewhere to be able to make it, to make even the TV shows that are currently, running in Japan.
Yeah.
Jeffrey had a question.
Yeah, I was
in the chat.
This is
right. So he's saying it's very nostalgic in the 10-minute clip and the sound and the effects, and the Spacium beam is faithful to the original, and it's a recreation. Well, yeah, I can talk about that. They got the original guy who did the optical animation for the original Ultraman series, who created the Spacium beam, to do it again. He's 80 years old now.
Wow.
And he's still been working on a lot of the current Ultraman shows doing beams. He does it digitally now. He draws them,
Yeah.
But then they're uploaded digitally, and they're married digitally.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, he came back to recreate the beams for this movie.
In fact, yeah. So we've got the nostalgia factor, but we've also got this old guard of Ultraman creators. This guy, doing the visual effects. But speak to what we hear about Ben Furuya and the motion cap.
Right. Yeah. So the interesting thing about that is not only what they did is they originally did a CAD of Ben Furuya, who is Satoshi, Ben is his nickname, Satoshi Furuya. They did a total CAD of his body, scan of his body to get the exact original Ultraman proportions, because he's still in the shape he was back then. The man is insane. I asked him about, he works out every day, and he's, in his 70s now. and he might even be older now. But he's getting there. But what he said is every day he does laps in a wading pool, which is you're walking back and forth. The water is up to, like your waist or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's to keep his core centered.
Okay.
So he stays in shape. And so they wanted to get his body, his body proportions, so it would be exactly like the original Ultraman. It wouldn't be like putting another person in the suit, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And also they decided, because they were going to be able to do this and create this character of Shin Ultraman in CG, that they would do it as and do it in CGI, that they could kind of elongate his body a little bit to make him look a little less human, just like a man in a suit, and a little more alien by elongating the body a little bit. And at first, when people saw teasers for it, they were going, that's kind of weird. Yeah, it's kind of weird, because they're supposed to be making him kind of like, almost like a cross between Ultraman, what I would say would be a gray,
Yeah.
sort of like the taller versions of the grays, the kind of skinny arms and skinny legs, elongated arms and legs and torso and neck even. But they didn't do it too much where it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But it's just enough to look weird. It's enough to be, to tell you that's not exactly human,
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty neat that they did that. But what they did with they did motion capture with Mr. Furuya. And then they also doing motion capture for Ultraman, Shin Ultraman's moves, was Anno himself.
Okay, really? So Anno gets in the wearing the tennis balls or whatever it is they did with the for the motion cap.
Right, and that's his second time playing Ultraman.
Okay, so
you know about that?
Yeah, I didn't. I heard that somewhere. I don't know if I read that on the wiki page or whatever, but I did hear about Anno's involvement more than just behind the scenes that way, that he actually did get the chance to do some motion cap. So I think that's fantastic.
Right.
But what was the other chance he had?
Yeah, Anno, a long time ago, well, let's just put it this way. There's a company called Gainax, which everybody knows, which is a company that's, produced Evangelion originally, that did animation movies like The Wings of Oniamis, The Royal Space Force, and Nadia, Secret of the Blue Water. They were like hugely known in the 90s and early 2000s. And that company originally started as a bunch of goofball fans like ourselves in Osaka. It's sort of like the difference between Tokyo and LA would be like San Francisco. I mean, Tokyo, Osaka would be like San Francisco, Los Angeles. So these guys in Osaka decided that there were all these products that they would have liked to have seen made, that they could have bought when they were kids, not necessarily kiddie toys, but like things that adults would want to wear or have. Models of ships that were never made, and so on, and like the Science Patrol pin and things like that. So they started this company called General Products in the 80s. And then they started, because they all were interested in animation and live action special effects, or tokusatsu. What they decided to do was to make Super 8 films and then market them themselves and release them under their own label and sell it through their shop and through mail order. So they got the rights. They did a couple of things, but cutting to the chase, Anno came up with doing an episode, a half-hour episode of called Return of Ultraman, like the 1971 series, which he and Higuchi grew up on. That was the first Ultraman they saw as kids, and they were obsessed with it. But what they did was he mashed up the aesthetics of Return of Ultraman and Ultra 7.
All right.
So it's kind of a mashup. The ship designs had all be original. The monster design had to be all original. They couldn't use any pre-existing characters. They came up with all new characters and situation, and they created a whole new world. They did a lot of world building. It's amazing. And when I saw it back when I was living in Japan in '85, I was like, holy crap, this is awesome. I want to aspire to making a Super 8 movie like that. And it was really great. And it's serious. But when the hero changes into Ultraman, this is where it goes into wacko territory, wackadoo, and they keep a straight face. I mean, it still stays serious. They don't go cornball goofy. They don't go into parody. But the thing that's out of place is that they couldn't use the Ultraman mask because they, got around the copyrights. They got certain permissions, but they couldn't pay, or, were not allowed with the money that they had to use an actual Ultraman face mask. So it's Anno in a silver jacket with Ultraman stripes painted on it. And it's Anno's head, his curly hair at that time, his wild curly hair, wearing his glasses.
Yeah.
And he comes out and he fights the monster.
Just like that.
And it's done completely straight-faced.
Wow.
Now, General Products, when they made all these little films, they did them under the label Daikon. That's related to the convention that happens in Osaka called Daikon. Whole other story. But they did some opening animations for the events, and that eventually, they started doing these films that they released through General Products, the store. So these are all labeled under Daikon Films, right? So you can find Anno's Return of Ultraman on YouTube with English subtitles. Some great, amazing person uploaded it and put subs on it, and it's on there so you can watch it yourself. It's a great Super 8 project. I mean, everybody, that was involved with that were in their early 20s.
Yeah.
And they did a pretty great job. I mean, if it was professionally shot, meaning that if it was an actual filmed Ultraman episode with a real Ultraman in it, it would be a great episode of an actual show.
Huh.
It's that good.
But shot in Super 8 of all things.
Shot in Super 8 on weekends, that kind of thing,
Yeah, exactly.
Anno has I should say Anno had the honor of playing Ultraman that first time, and then he in fact it became so infamous in Japanese pop culture that there's a series by a toy company called Medicom, that they did these 1/6 scale action figures of Japanese superheroes and anime characters called Real Action Hero Line. That started back in the late 90s. And they did a doll of Anno as Ultraman.
With the glasses and everything?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, just with a silver jacket. He's wearing like pants and shoes, like tennis shoes, and he's wearing like, slacks, and he's got this silver jacket with the stripes painted on it and the color timer, the warning light.
Uh-huh.
And
wow.
they did an actual 1/6 scale action figure of Anno as Ultraman.
Oh,
from
unbelievable. Wow. And speaking of toys, I have a giveaway that I'll have August help me out with. It was going to be more based on the comments, but I was going to say, August, if there's someone in the comments that particularly made a good comment, whether it was something that you just really liked or just something that stood out to you, if you pick one by the end of this episode, I will send this to them as a freebie. It's just this cheap what do you call it?
Nice.
Mego action figure, but if you're an Ultraman fan, I don't care, you're gonna love it, and so it'll be part of their collection. So by the end of this episode, if someone makes a comment that particularly catches your fancy, I'll let you pick them. So,
All right.
yeah, but going along with this Ultraman and the fact that we've got Anno back in here, to do official Ultraman material here. That's just, this is a conglomeration of a great many creators to be a part of this. Even though, like what you said, it's not like the studio system where they had a lot of creative control in-house. Now they've got the investors and all of that being all with their hands in the pot. So maybe there's going to be some criticism coming out as we see the full film, and that is what it is. With the
there's actually there's been corporate involvement dictating content at least since the 90s. And even starting with the first Ultraman show that was affected by this was Ultraman Tiga.
Okay.
And the development of that show, there's a whole long story. It was going to be something else. It was going to be Ultraman Neos. And then Bandai was like, well, we don't know about that. Neos was produced later as an original video series that was not connected to Bandai. But Bandai was starting to want more toys based on the different characters in the show. Because what was happening so what's the best way to do it? Well, some kids are going to go, well, there's the one Ultraman. Maybe I just want the Ultraman figure and that's it. I'm not going to buy any monsters, I just want the Ultraman figure. So what if you made Ultraman have different forms? So then you would have to collect those forms, all those forms. So they did Ultraman Tiga, which Tiga in Indonesian means three. They did, 3 forms, right? Mm-hmm. One's like a power type, a sky type, and then a multi-type, which is the standard issue form. And then they continued to do that with the series that followed. And then when they revived the Kamen Rider franchise, that's Toei's superhero series, the guy who rides on a motorcycle that looks like a bug, for those out there who don't know who he is. And Shout Factory's got some stuff on their Shout Factory TV.com and on Tokusatsu channel on Pluto TV. You can see some of that stuff as well. When they got to reviving that in 2000 with Kamen Rider Kuga, they started doing multi-forms too on the one hero. And Bandai started saying, well, you got to do this show. But I mean, Bandai's involvement even goes further back, with them sort of dictating the design of the characters in the shows, like the robots in this Power Rangers series or the Super Sentai series.
Yeah.
But so it's easier to have somebody at Bandai design the robots, the giant robots, so it would be easier to make into a toy because this person was already like a designer and an engineer. So it's easier for them because a lot of the creators in Japanese films and television before that period would come up with very wild designs, and toy companies sometimes would find it frustrating to duplicate those designs into toys with the technology at the time in the 70s and 80s, So it was much more difficult to do really super oddly shaped characters. So yeah, Bandai's involved, has been involved deeply with Ultraman, for quite a long time.
Well, and I was going to say, the farming out of some of these visual effects works we've seen, done Super Sentai, to create the Power Rangers, and there's others out there, the series that does that. But Ultraman, I was always happy to see that we got in its original form. You were talking earlier about like Rodan with its success in the Godzilla series. That almost kind of happened with, I guess, the volcano monsters, Godzilla raids again, but I really like seeing them in their original form, edited and cut together the way that it was built for Japanese audiences. Yeah, there's some cutting here and there that ends up happening, but I'd rather not see it farmed out so we can get, American actors in there. Yeah, sure, they kind of did that with the original Godzilla and all to give us a narration, but it was still in its core a Japanese film placed in Japan with Japanese characters. And so seeing Shin Ultraman that way will be, the way we really want to see it and not farmed out. I guess you could say it is what it is. The Super Sentai did it with Power Rangers, but I also see it as bringing in that American audience to see this content and to dive into it. And I always find that that's a fascinating way. It's how I got into it with Power Rangers.
Right. And a lot of people did, and a lot of people made the transition, and there still are, MMPR fans that really aren't that interested in seeing the Japanese originals.
Right.
It's a funny world, because when we were growing up, when my friends, my peers, my fellow monster fans of my generation were growing up, we wanted to see everything. I mean, if it was a Japanese cup of noodles commercial, we wanted to see it. It was weird. We were just like, okay, Johnny Sacco, cool. That's cool too.
Right.
Nobody was sitting there, well, Johnny Sacco sucks compared to Ultraman, or Gamera movies are terrible compared to Godzilla movies. We were just like, we want it all. Give me everything. I want to see and experience everything. And that also included, anime, and the stuff that was coming out on like UHF, local Japanese programmers across America. They bring over a Japanese robot show from the 70s, like Brave Raideen, which was shown in Hawaii, San Francisco, Sacramento, Los Angeles, Chicago, I believe, and New York for sure, with English subtitles coming in, on like Saturday or Sunday nights. When you're a kid, you're like, Japanese, it's got big monsters in it and robots pounding them. It's not live action, it's animation. Who cares? It's the same freaking thing. It's giant robots and giant monsters. We want to have it all. We want to watch it all. We want to see it all. And now a lot more people today seem to compartmentalize everything. And there will be like, fans who, got hooked by Power Rangers that like Super Sentai, the Japanese originals, but they won't look at Kamen Rider. And then and a lot of this stuff's out there in fan subs. There's been fan sub groups around for a long, long time, and subtitling the current shows, and you have to download them and on the down low and get that stuff. But people will go like, oh, I don't know if will I like it? Will I like it? Legitimate questions. Will I like it? Back in the day, we want to see it. I want to see it now. And, I'll determine whether later if it was that great or not.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And that's why I think what's happening now with, Best Buy, I think, had the Blu-rays of the Ultraman, Ultra Q, Ultra 7, as soon as those were coming out, I was picking them up, and the Blu-ray quality is just beautiful. I mean, I love seeing them, restored. We were kind of talking about that before you came on here, that there's this content to be had in really great picture quality, considering, some of the other DVDs we got, you definitely had that TV picture quality to it, and it was fine for what it was, but then it looks beautiful seeing it, how they've switched over that 16 millimeter and 35 millimeter film over to our HD TVs. And, it still looks great. It looks like it could have been made, not too long ago, not in the 60s. So yeah, it is funny. I actually started with Ultraman Towards the Future. I was on, I believe, the Sci-Fi Channel, and that wasn't even a Japanese cast. But it got me interested in knowing what was going on with this IP. Didn't have a lot of episodes with that, but it say what you will. That's a whole episode you and I could talk about, because I still have a special place in my heart for that one.
Well, I could tease you with two things.
Okay.
Is the fact that Ultraman Towards the Future was one of the first of the production committee shows, and they just wanted to kind of test the waters, so they only produced 13 episodes. And it was that basic insecurity of like, we don't want this to flop, so we're not going to commit to more than that. If it does well, we might do more. And there was originally a plan for them to do more episodes, but there was a big kerfuffle with the South Australian Film Commission that produced the film. They were embroiled in some scandal, so of course that never happened. But the other thing about Ultraman Towards the Future was that, and now I forgot what that was. That's the one story about that show there. But it was like, Go ahead.
I was going to say, I did read that it actually never aired in Australia. It was actually aired in the US and Japan, but actually never was for the Australian audiences themselves, even though it was produced over there.
Right. Well, the interesting thing too is that you know, there's a couple of guys on. There's one guy on Facebook that actually worked on the show and made some of the monsters. He's a super nice guy. He's got a lot of great photos. Mm-hmm. But can't recall his name off the top of my head right now. But the other thing with Ultraman Towards the Future, and I forgot it again. Okay, never mind.
If you,
I don't know. My mind's going 1,000 miles a minute, man. I'm on like 3 different tracks right now.
Yeah, it's all good. If it comes to you,
colder.
if it comes to you, just interrupt and go right to it. Because you've been very generous with your time, and I want to be able to start winding things down. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I remember now. So what it was that a lot of there are several principal people who worked on Ultraman Towards the Future that went on to do Farscape.
Okay, now that makes sense.
So that's kind of a cool thing.
Yeah,
that's kind of a cool thing. But we should probably. I'm sure people out there want to hear more about Shin Ultraman.
Yes.
So maybe you should. Someone else mentioned the chat about the soundtrack.
Yes.
And that was sort of the same kind of a problem that I had with Shin Godzilla was because they used old tracks in addition to new tracks by the main composer for the films, Shiro Sagisu, who scored Evangelion, and is also the son of the man who created Spectre Man, produced the live-action Space Giants, and a bunch of other stuff. It's all these circles upon circles.
Yeah.
But there seems to be a similar problem with Shin Ultraman. Yeah, they're using the old tracks that were done by Hiroshi, not Miyagawa. Where am I at? God darn it. So they used original tracks from the Ultraman show.
Yeah.
And some of them, there's one that they did, they redid a track. They actually went in the studio and did a stereo version because you could hear the arrangement. There's a couple of different instruments that are in the clip that are fine. And then there's some unused tracks from Shin Godzilla in the movie, stuff that was written for Shin Godzilla that wasn't used in Shin Godzilla, and some other pieces of music that Shiro Sagisu did besides the original music by Kunio Miyauchi that they cherry picked for the. But it's like the old recordings are not going to sound the same as new recordings.
They stand out,
and I think I really think that this is sort of like it's almost like temp tracking, which temp tracking was a way that what they did movies in the old days, in the olden days. Like, for example, when they made Star Wars, when George Lucas was first putting together Star Wars, John Williams hadn't written the score yet. He was writing the score. And so just to show people, Lucas put music from like Holst the Planets, which is, classical music. And he put stuff in there and said to John Williams, I want it to kind of be like that,
Yeah.
But temp tracks are where you just take pre-existing music, slap them onto your film that's only going to be seen by a very small amount of people that are actually associated with producing or making the film, just to kind of give you an idea of what it's going to sound like, what the music score is kind of going to be like, or what they're driving at. And it kind of seems that both Shin Godzilla and this movie have that problem where everything just sounds like temp tracks,
Yeah, it's almost
kind of like how you would.
Yeah, they were sampling and they were experimenting, but then it ended up in the final product. So it's like it really jars you to hear like those old mono sounding like cues and things, especially in Shin Godzilla. You're just like, wow, that's a little tribute. And every once in a while, maybe you kind of say, okay, I get it. But then it continues on, and it's very jarring to hear that along with the more modern sound, modern recording. Yeah. And so I guess that they're going to do that with this.
It's kind of right. Well, it's pretty much, that's what the score is for this film. I mean, the CD is already out in Japan.
Okay.
I wish, and I'm not trying to say this to put the film down. So, a lot of people will hear if I have a criticism of something, they might go, "Oh, Ragone is just a hater. He doesn't like any of the new stuff. He just likes the old stuff." No, I really want to like new things, especially since I have to add this in here that Ultraman, the original 1966 Ultraman series, is my favorite TV show of any kind of all time. Period. It's not even including not just, it's my favorite Japanese superhero or favorite Japanese sci-fi series. No, it's my favorite TV series of all time, period. So yeah, I might be prejudiced, but or maybe biased, I could say at times, or I could factor that in, but objectively trying to look at this film, I wished what they could have done is taken the original music, and rearranged it, reorchestrated it, and re-recorded it new with with modern technology, and not just try to use old tracks. It kind of brings the film down a little bit.
Yeah. Okay.
In doing so, it can be a distraction, and it's kind of amazing that with Shin Godzilla, and they used a couple old original Godzilla cues from '54, right?
Right.
So, and some other old cues, but the original '54 one that they used was really kind of jarring. Because the difference in the audio, you're just sitting in the audience. You don't have to be an audio expert. I'm certainly not an audio expert. And you would just go, ooh, that's the cool music, but it sounds like somebody's sampling, right?
Yeah.
Or so around that same time, or just before they made that film, there was a project in Japan that they reorchestrated and re-recorded with a full orchestra the original 1954 score with a modern orchestra, modern recording, modern engineering, sound mixing. They put it out on CD. And it's amazing that they just didn't use the recreated cue, because that would have been stereophonic. It would have matched the audio quality of the other tracks. But anyway, enough of digressing about the music. A lot of people, that's going to be a nostalgia point for them in hearing some of those cues. And I kind of was impressed with the one stereo clip that I heard in there, because at first a friend of mine was saying, well, they just used old clips, and while listening to the soundtracks, paying attention to it in that 10-minute clip, I could really hear, oh wait, there's a couple of, they added some strings into this. That's a new recording, or it's a remix, but it sounded new to me. Well, it's the same old memorable theme. But anyway, we should probably, before we got to go, is talk a little bit about these images, right?
Well, yeah, and I was going to also ask, just maybe if it is briefly, since you've seen more of this without being too spoiler heavy, does it have a connection with real life modern events in the same way that Shin Godzilla was somewhat of a response to the Fukushima disaster, the tsunami, the earthquake, and all of that it became somewhat allegorical and all that. Did you kind of see anything that was related to pandemic or any other events, or was this standalone? No. It's its own entertaining piece of work.
Yeah, no. Yeah. Well, the movie was written and put in the can and finished before the pandemic.
Okay.
And the release was delayed because of the pandemic, but the film was pretty much already finished. They were still doing some post when the talks of shutting down happened, but the film was written. In fact, Anno started talking and working on what became this film in terms of writing the screenplay earlier than Shin Godzilla. Okay. 2013. This has been in development since 2013.
Really?
And another thing was that the original idea that was presented to him when he was approached to do this, to write the film, that it would be a trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not going to happen.
Oh,
that's not going to happen. When they decided to okay, now we greenlit this, we're going to do it. It's just going to be one film. Now, the massive success may change that, but the massive success of Shin Godzilla didn't bring us a Shin Godzilla 2.
True.
And that was mostly because Anno and Anno said, well, this is it. It's a standalone. This was always conceived as a standalone. And, and I think Higuchi was saying if people want a sequel, they should clap for it or, demand it. But I don't think he was going to make that happen either. But anyway, for this particular film, so they decided just to condense everything into one film. What this film deals with mostly, interestingly enough, are kind of exploring some of the themes and situations in the original Ultraman series and playing off of those, because they're adapting 5 episodes of the show into this movie and doing some fan service that's so deep that the average Ultraman fanatic, the average person I've seen all the episodes of Ultraman, a whole bunch of times, there are things that they pulled from the surrounding pop culture of Ultraman from the 1960s that were featured in boys magazines that anyone outside of Japan, most people, 99.9% of people outside of Japan, would never have access to or have seen, or even if they had it, they wouldn't be able to read it. They pulled pieces from stuff like that.
Really?
And some of them they pulled were actual mistakes that they went, oh, okay, let's just make that really happen.
Huh.
And for an example, in a lot of boys magazines in the 70s, this is before you had serious QC, quality control between the companies and publishers, where they would have to, like, the publishers were kind of allowed to do whatever they wanted. And it wasn't like Tsuburaya Productions or Toho or anybody else. They didn't send someone down there and go, oh, that's wrong. You got to change that before you print it. These mistakes would happen. And then, then Tsuburaya or Toho would go, oops, don't do that again. Mm-hmm. Right? And a lot of that stuff had been forgotten over time. So originally the character of Zopi, who is in this shot we're looking at now, which is Ultraman in the original stories, Ultraman Superior, that comes to bail him out, in the finale, the original finale. He was listed mistakenly in the Kids magazine at the time, before the episode was broadcast, as the villain.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So he has come to Earth. He's like a bad Ultraman that has come to Earth and uses the space dinosaur Zeton to defeat Ultraman. And then, of course, like everybody at Tsuburaya and TBS, which is Tokyo Broadcasting Service, the network that produced Ultraman, like everybody, when they saw that in the magazines, they all palm to face. Oh no. Luckily over time, everybody has pretty much forgotten it except for like hardcore Ultraman lorists and authors who put out books and like, let's reprint. Hey, remember that time that they said Zopi was a bad guy? It was a really big gaffe. Huh. So that's a spoiler for this film. Zopi is not there to save Ultraman per se. Well, let's just say he's there to go, why are you here? Uh-huh. Without spoiling too much, Zopi doesn't really think human beings are inconsequential.
Oh.
Because what they've done is the tagline for this movie is, so you really care for human beings that much.
Interesting.
Which is the line of dialogue Zopi says to Ultraman in the final episode. When Ultraman says, I want to stay and protect the Earth, after he's defeated by Zeton in the TV episode. So in this movie, they do an inversion of that line. They flip the script with that line.
Huh.
And so Zopi asks the same question, but he's like, why do you care to save these inconsequential beings?
Okay.
But he uses the same line of dialogue, do you really care for the humans that much?
Yeah. Okay.
So he's kind of ambivalent. Zopi's ambivalent to humanity, and there is if I told you what it was, people would go, holy crap. So maybe I shouldn't say anything right here, but so let's you can see in some of the photos people may have picked up that in the shots of Ultraman, he's kind of like Zophie in some clips where his stripes are a bluish color or a greenish color.
Right.
And so instead of having the warning light on his chest, when Ultraman's power changes, the colors of his lines change.
Aha.
So he goes from like that lead to red to green and then blue.
Oh, wow. Okay.
During the course of the film, and then his face changes from the A to sort of like the B type, which was the middle episodes of the original Ultraman show, and to the final one that the most iconic mask, which is the C type, which you see in the climax photo, or the Memphilas photo. So that's like the iconic third Ultraman C mask.
Yeah.
So and then you see him like with his colors kind of running out there. His power's running out. So instead of like every Ultraman can only fight for 3 minutes, over the course of the movie, he's losing power.
Ah, okay.
So kind of a spoiler, but not really a spoiler.
Well, because we want more than 3 minutes of action, obviously, in a feature-length film. So, yeah, he's gonna,
right. Well, there's plenty of fights in this thing, and I have little qualms with the quality of the CG here and there, but overall, it seems good, and of course, most of these clips aren't being seen, in the process you're supposed to see it in the theater.
Right.
And they've even, they're doing it in IMAX in Japan too.
Oh, wow.
So that's that would really amplify anything that was wrong. And then people are still going, hey, this is great, and walking away, happy. Movie has resonated with audiences because, as some Japanese writers have said, or noted rather, that this is like the first Ultraman movie made for adults.
Okay. So
it's like a grown up version of Ultraman, because every year we're getting a new Ultraman series. We're getting Ultraman movies every year too, spun off of the new series.
Right.
And they're all made for and I hate to say this, and it's like they are being made for kids under 12 primarily.
What are you trying to say?
But I mean, there are like friends of mine that are expat Americans that live in Japan. Will go and see them, and they enjoy them. I've seen a few of them that I really like. Some of them are good. Some of them are like, oh, that was okay. But a lot of them kind of feel like, it's just a glossier TV episode. And I think one of the best of the theatrical features of the last 20 plus years is undoubtedly Ultraman Gaia, what they call Ultraman Gaia Battle in Hyperspace, which should be quantum space and not hyperspace. That was like a mistranslation.
Oh yeah.
But that Ultraman Gaia movie, even though it's got kids in it, the actors that they got are good. The material that they're working with is so well written, and it's a very engaging story, and it's probably, I think, the best of the TV spin-off Ultraman movies.
Oh wow.
And it was still, I think it was still shot on film, and when they produced it, I believe it was, and I was on the set for that film, which it kind of means a lot to me. I was on the set of that film, and then the previous one, Ultraman Tiga and Ultraman Dyna, and in 97 and 98, and Kazuya Tanaka was the director and writer on that film, and he also he did an animated series. Which one was it? Line, which was like this kind of grim horror animated series. He was known as an anime writer and doing like what they call now light novels. And he had a following. And then so Tsuburaya went to him and went, "Hey, you want to be the showrunner on this Ultraman series?" And they picked him as a showrunner for Ultraman Gaia. And so he did the show running for that series, and then he helmed the movie. I think both Ultraman Gaia is my favorite Ultraman series of the Heisei period, of the modern era. And although I do like Tiga and Dinah equally. I saw them all in, real time. So went, oh, Tiga, oh man, this is awesome. Dinah, when Dinah first started, it got a little more comic bits in it. And I kind of was like, oh, I wish they wouldn't go into the, kind of goofy comedy thing. But then there were episodes that were completely amazing. They be straight faced when they wanted to. They wasn't always silly. There was a little goofiness here and there, just to lighten the mood. Kind of like with Ide in the original Ultraman series, or Ito, member of the Science Patrol, that was goofy.
Yeah.
So that could be forgiven because that's already part of the Ultraman formula. But when they got to Ultraman Gaia, I think they were firing on all cylinders at that point. And that show is so awesome that, and it's got, for those people who like Ultraman Tiga and Ultraman Dinah had, they were episodic. They had overreaching arcs, they would come back to, and fold towards the end on both of those shows. But Gaia was the first one that was fully serialized, even though the episodic structure was there. But it was it also had a stronger arc, subplots that were very continuing. That you had to keep up with the show to know what was going on. Mm-hmm. You could still enjoy them, watching them as random episodes, but there was still that you got that information for that arc. So. Yeah. So that
series.
That was a great movie that they did. That Gaia movie was great. So people are reacting to Shin Ultraman. Most of the people that are going, that I hear from, that are going back are, out of the expat American fans, guys like Paul Haberman and Nicholas Driscoll. Those guys are really enjoying it. They're, sort of like the older American fans, so to speak. Then you have, the Japanese audiences. It seems to be a lot of people who grew up with Ultraman, either in the 60s or reruns in the 70s. People in their 40s are really reacting really well to this Ultraman movie. I'm not sure. I haven't really been able to see. I know there's some younger people enjoying the film, but I mean, I think it just like, what was it, about 2 days ago? The film is raked in over like 3.9 billion yen at the box office. Huh. And I can't give you the dollar figure right now because I had my computer crash earlier.
That's okay.
But that's a lot of money. So even though the film in the last 2 weeks has dropped from number 1 to number 4, it's still raking in big bucks. So audiences have really reacted. They, like I said, they released this film in IMAX, and then they also did the 4D, where the seats move and they spray crap in your face, and
nice.
If there's an earthquake, the chairs shake, And so So I mean, the movie, if the movie wasn't making that much money in Japan, relatively for a Japanese, how a Japanese film should perform, they wouldn't be going, okay, we're going to do 4D now,
Yeah.
And give you the shaky seats on top of it. So
exactly.
Yeah. So it's doing really well. We'll see what happens with this.
I know, and I'm excited to finally see it when it finally does come out. I'm keeping my hopes up that we'll get a theatrical release. If nothing else, we'll have, our Blu-ray, our imports and things like that. But when you were talking about the classic Ultraman, I was looking at the wiki and I thought I knew Ultraman until I saw it all listed out. It's not just a world of Ultraman IP, it's a vast galaxy of it, and so much that you can consume in this. And he is their quintessential superhero figure, and so seeing the Japanese audience reacting the way it is, I just hoping that we can get that IP over here and start getting an American audience. Who knows? It may take off. We just we just have to wait and see, I guess, until that point. We'll wrap up.
I think I was just going to say I think that just the push with Mill Creek has obviously expanded the audience for this IP, and even before that, you had Crunchyroll started streaming a bunch of, was the biggest anime streaming site in America and one of the biggest anime streaming sites in the world. And they had, I think, the Ultraman titles they got were also available in several other countries besides North America and United States and Canada. And so that kind of expanded his view. And so, like, from one year being at G-Fest, and there would be very few people that would talk about Ultraman. To go back a couple years later after Crunchyroll's streaming a bunch of stuff, and then they were simulcasting one of the new series at the time, like Ultraman X, I think. And you hear people talking more about it because now they can see it actually. And a lot of people were afraid to, or fans were afraid to watch some of this stuff before because all you could get were raws, basically unsubtitled material.
Yeah.
So that kind of like put people off. And again, back in my day when we lived in a cardboard box in the gutter and liked it, we were watching, we watched anything we could get from our Japanese pen pals. And, that was not going to become subtitled. It's great that we got a lot of subtitled material, and there's fan subbers out there doing other stuff too for the other types of shows like these. But, I'm not trying to say you kids today are spoiled at all. What I'm saying is that, I think that sort of passion to just go, I'm going to watch this anyway. I don't care if I understand a word of it, but I really want to see this stuff. It's kind of like fallen to the wayside in a way. So I think it's kind of kept some people from watching things. They're expecting it. Well, I'm going to wait till somebody subs it or somebody dubs it, and then maybe I'll watch it at that point. Which is too bad. But at the same time, we've got this material now available, and most recently, you had the big push with Ultraman back in 2004 or 5 through BCI Eclipse, and then that company went under because of the 2008 recession. And then you had like Mill Creek pick those up and continue releasing those, putting those out. And that really kind of, even as cheap as they became to buy, inexpensive to buy, I think a lot of people that were the ones that were buying it were already fans that grew up watching Ultraman in the 70s or 80s.
Exactly.
On American television. And so that was already like kind of a built-in audience, and maybe somebody would randomly, if it was cheap enough, buy it and go, oh, it's pretty good.
Right.
And they find out. But I think the big push with with Mill Creek this round, with finally that court decision happening that broke Tsuburaya away from that Thai company, I'll leave nameless, that were trying to take away the rights to Ultraman, claiming that they owned them. That was fought. They were fighting in courts, for nearly 20 years. That finally got resolved. So this big push, it was like this floodgate open. So, we're getting everything. It's not a long wait. Just all this stuff's being pushed out. Yeah. And the pandemic helped to be a boost too. I mean, before that, like generally the sales of the DVDs or the Blu-rays rather from Mill Creek were doing very, very well with brick and mortars, which is kind of strange. Yeah. Today a lot of people say online sales are everything, right?
Exactly.
But like Target, really, Walmart, and other online, other brick and mortar retailers that also have online presence, they were doing really great sales. So they were like, give us everything you got, put out more stuff, give us more. This stuff is selling.
Wow.
And it's kind of amazing that 99, I think almost everything is, as far as the TV shows themselves so far aren't dubbed, they're all subtitled, that the sales are that high and the reaction has been so good, and now we're getting we're getting pushes with, the limited series Marvel comics that are being done, which, is trying to appeal to the comic book fan base. And, unfortunately, the timing is kind of bad because, the comic book industry is in a shambles right now.
Right.
But, it's still like if you walk into a comic book store, you're going to see Ultraman on the shelf, and they're going to continue the line now with the Ultra 7 comic now. They're going to go from Ultraman, the classic Ultraman, to Ultra 7. with the Marvel comics. So we'll see what happens. I mean, I think, even though Shout Factory, also signed a deal a little while back to pick up the exclusive streaming rights for all the Ultraman shows, and I know a lot of people know you could watch them on Pluto TV, on the Tokusatsu channel, which is the Shout Factory channel exclusive to Japanese stuff. But you can also watch all the stuff on demand on shoutfactorytv.com. And a lot of people will go like, I see all this great stuff on Pluto TV, but I'm waiting to see this one show. I go, you can go straight to Shout Factory TV and just watch the episode of whatever show you want. They're up there.
Yeah.
They're up there now. So, I think maybe more awareness, as much as I love Shout Factory and what they've done, because if they weren't doing it, we couldn't watch it right now. But, the approach might have been to maybe go to a bigger streaming service, But maybe this will stimulate a larger streaming service to pick it up, Netflix has that modern animation Ultraman, which is based on the manga that has been running for the last 10 years.
Right, yeah.
Which has gotten a lot of good attention, but I think the profile, fans know where to find this stuff when they network, they talk to each other, as we all know, that's what we do. And we try to promote and tell people, oh, go over here. But they're just sort of missing a larger market. And the other market that they're missing too, because of the fact that stuff's not dubbed, is sort of like the under 12 market.
Right.
Because the number one thing I hear from parents who are fans are like, I wish some of this stuff was dubbed. Are they ever going to dub any of this stuff so my little kids can watch it?
Yeah, that's my kids, because they go back to that DVD VCI series instead of the nice, new Blu-rays that we got. But I'm like, but it looks great. You can read it, But yeah, they would rather sit back and listen to the dubbed version. They also actually do kind of like that the English opening sequence with the American or the English singers, even though that's not the lyrics from the original, but.
Right. It's sort of a play on them. It's sort of a play on them. I mean, the guy who did, I don't know about who wrote the lyrics of the song. It could be Peter Fernandez, but Peter Fernandez was a writer, director, voice talent who is famously known as the voice of Speed Racer. And he adapted and wrote and directed all the English dubbed episodes of the original Ultraman show.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So
it's well dubbed, honestly. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, see, that was the thing when I was a kid. And I think one of the questions you asked me before the show was, what is my favorite Ultraman show? And I already answered that at the top of the show, I believe, which was the original series, my favorite show of all time, any kind of TV show, whatever. I think part of my attraction to the Ultraman series also was that aesthetically, the texture, the feel, and the look of the series is very, very close to what Toho was doing at that same time in the 60s.
Yes.
So if you were, I've always told people, if you are a fan of the Godzilla movies of the 60s, like Monster Zero, Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, Godzilla versus the Sea Monster, whatever it happens to be, you should like Ultraman. And plus, the fact that there are a lot of Toho actors in the series. In fact, Susumu Kurobe, who is the actor who played Hayata, the human, the human who combines with Ultraman in the original series, he was a Toho contract actor. Hiroko Sakurai, who played Fuji, also, and a lot of the guest stars, lots of guys you would see in Toho movies of the 60s. So, watching something like War of the Gargantuas and you see an episode of Ultraman, it'd be the same actors.
Yeah.
So when I was a kid, at the end of the Ultraman episodes by United Artists, it would say production. They never said Tsuburaya Productions for some reason, because they didn't negotiate the series through Tsuburaya. They negotiated it through the network that produced it in Japan with TBS. And it just said a production of TBS. And that's before Ted Turner, before Ted Turner Network Broadcasting Services. And so when I was a kid, I was like, what does that mean? What does that mean? And I said, it's got to be Toho Broadcasting System.
Which
I was convinced the show was made by Toho when I was a kid, until I started coming across material, Japanese material and books and things that said otherwise. But at the same time, one of the early, Eiji Tsuburaya himself was working for Toho. At the time, he formed Tsuburaya Productions, and many, in fact, almost every single person on the board of directors, besides Tsuburaya himself, and I believe his wife was on the board of directors for a little while at the beginning, at the very founding of the studio, or the company rather, were all Toho producers.
Okay.
So Toho was a financial investor in Tsuburaya Productions from the beginning. So they had the same, sound effects director. So Tsuburaya is just going like, I want you to do, you do a great job on the movies. I want you to do the sound effects for the TV show. So it was like Tsuburaya was a king at that time at Toho Studios. So, that's why they could drag out miniatures and suits and redress things. And a lot of people will say, at the same time that, they reused a lot of stuff because it was a low budget show. And that's not really the case. That's not really the mindset. I mean, yes, there are some movies and TV shows that did that because of those exact reasons. As Tsuburaya's mindset was, well, if I can use this instead of building it new, and we'll just remodel it, we'll just, mod it out or customize it or change it. That's going to save us X amount of production dollars that I could put into this on the production instead. We could go on location more. We could do more animated rays, which were really expensive. That was a hindrance on the original Star Trek. The reason why you didn't see the landing party, or what they call now the away team,
right,
on the original Star Trek show, why they didn't use their phasers more is because every time you fired a phaser, it cost a lot of money.
Right, exactly. Those visual effects shots aren't cheap.
Right, and the thing was with Ultraman, Tsuburaya decided to shoot the original show in 16 millimeter instead of like Ultra Q, which was shot in 35, because he went, okay, I can take that money that we shot it in 16, because this is only going to play on TV anyway.
Right.
Then I can take that money and we can invest that in, things like optical animation. So every time Ultraman fired a beam, every time there was a blue screen shot, which means like you would have a foreground shot of like people in the city running, and there was a monster in the background over the buildings, which is a combination of a real location shot and, a shot from the studio of the monster, right?
Right.
That they would be able to shoot those and combine them and do the optical process, whether it was blue screen matting or the optical animation, rotoscoping, or whatever you want to call it. They could do that in 35 millimeter and then blow that back down to 16.
Huh.
So you would have high quality optical effects, but he was saving money, not to pocket it, but to put it in other areas of the production that would improve the overall quality of the show.
Yeah. So that's why the human scenes might be in that 16 millimeter.
Brutal. Right. And no one imagined that people would be watching Ultraman 50 years later.
Right. Yeah. It was kind of one-off. If you didn't catch it on TV, you didn't catch it. There was no home video market for these kinds of things. But yeah, at least they preserved them. So we did get our home video market for, this generation of fans, which is, fantastic. And I really appreciate that they did that. And, but it still looks beautiful in its state on the Blu-ray. So I encourage people to check it out and pick them up because it's now really an exciting time to be an Ultraman fan. As you said, we're getting the content out and we've got this new film. Let's see what happens with it, and let's see how successful it can be here in the States. Wanted to wrap things up. I wanted to see if there was anyone in the chat that you wanted to particularly point out that had maybe a comment that really stood out to you or anything like that to do this giveaway for, and I'll be glad to send it to them. There's a lot of great observations.
First, I want to thank Joey Cortez for giving me the conversion. It's 3.5 billion yen is 25,945. 25,009. Well, I think the
Mr. Kama
wrong on this.
Yeah, Kama should have been.
Kama's wrong.
Yeah,
like 2,200,000 $2,594,055 US.
Wow.
There he goes. Okay. Thank you, Jody. And, but it was 3.9 was the actual number just made. So, you figure, it's over $25 million the movie's made at the box office, considering that the film probably cost like maybe, this is $25,000. I don't even know what I'm talking about. $25 million the film probably cost $10 million to make. Somewhere in that neighborhood, it's already made up its initial production costs. So,
yeah.
Let's see, we're going to give that name. I think Doc Locke had a comment earlier.
Yeah, let me see if I can't find it as you're kind of looking. There was you like the Zophie.
Right. I think that's so I think I would give it to Doc Locke.
Doc Locke. All right. Doc Locke, you are the winner of the Ultraman figure from Mego. I found the pronunciation. I was calling it Mego, so I was corrected nicely. So I still call him Ghidra, though. Do you call him Ghidorah or Ghidra?
Well, it's like it depends.
Yeah,
it really depends. I mean, when I was a kid before I saw Ghidra the Three-Headed Monster. I saw the name in books and magazines. Ghidra the Three-Headed Monster, blah blah blah. Right. And I hadn't seen the movie yet. But I saw Monster Zero, which they call him King Ghidorah. They pronounce it. That's how Nick Adams pronounces it, right?
Right.
It's King Ghidorah, So I heard that pronunciation before I heard Ghidra. But to me, as a kid, I actually had a weird theory when I was a kid, because when I was a little kid, back in the day when we lived in a cardboard box on the side of the road, I had a little personal TV that I could have in my room. It was like a hand-me-down, TV.
Yeah.
And it was a black and white set, so I could only see the Godzilla movies in black and white at first, the ones that were on television. And I saw Ghidra the Three-Headed Monster and then Destroy All Monsters, and they said his name was, so they had you go from King Ghidorah in Monster Zero to Ghidorah in Destroy All Monsters, right?
Yep.
Ghidorah the space monster. He's going to attack the other monsters from the sky. And then you had Ghidra the Three-Headed Monster. And I was like, my idea in my 10-year-old head was that there were 3 different three-headed monsters.
Oh.
And I think one of my friends said, because he saw Ghidra in a theater as a revival, it was like a triple feature, like 15th run movies, in my neighborhood. And I think I was away with, at grandma's house, and I missed that weekend. And he said, "Oh, Ghidra's gold." And I was like, "Wow, that's cool." And then one of my other schoolmates was convinced one was red. So we had this weird thing where I came up with this thing in my head that one was blue, one was red, and one was gold.
Huh.
And they were all 3 separate. They were 3 separate three-headed monsters. That's why the name was different.
That would be my way of putting it together as a kid too, because before we had the internet, these were the kinds of things we had to put together in our head. I mean, it's just what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes the story I put together in my head was actually better than what I saw on screen. Not in Godzilla's sense, but in other IP. But was always satisfied with my kaiju action. So yeah. Thank you for picking.
That was just like a crazy way kids saw things sometimes. I think it's kind of logical. It's kind of neat. And I one of the things I want to do, one of the 1,000 million things I want to do before I check out of here, is to I'd like to get eventually 3 of the same Ghidra figures and then paint them accordingly. Gold, you don't have to paint the gold one, but you would have the gold one, then paint a blue one and paint a red one, just so I could have that imaginary triumvirate, manifest finally.
I think someone out there could probably even do that for you, your own custom creature for you. So yeah, just ask around, and for enough money, anything can be made. But
oh yeah, absolutely.
With that,
I wanted to get that. I wanted to get that recent Bandai. Bandai did a special mail order Ghidra figure soft vinyl. That was the gold Ghidra, and then you had the other body, which was the pre-shooting paint job, which was his body spray painted a little blue, and he's got the red, white, and blue in his wings.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of interesting that was actually a thing. I was imagining this stuff before I actually saw that thing, that variation. That was the pre-shooting, and it was like Tsuburaya. Tsuburaya was like not really liking the color scheme on the monster, and they were already using it for pre-publicity photos for the film before they shot it.
Mm-hmm.
And he went, that blue is really gonna screw up if we do any blue screen shots.
Oh, right.
And his continuity, well, this is an antiquated term, don't get mad at me. The person who did continuity, which in Japan they call a scripter, which is a non-gendered description, we used to call in Hollywood continuity girl. And that continuity person would, while they're shooting, would mark in the script, yeah, we shot that. Oh, we kind of screwed that up. We got to keep track of this guy steps to the right, his pocket, and his suit pocket's got a pink handkerchief in it. We have to make sure it's, so it keeps everything consistent, so things don't change from shot to shot or scene to scene. And she was having a discussion with Tsuburaya, and Tsuburaya's going, what color should we make this monster? I don't know. And she goes, well, it's from Venus.
No.
And in Japan, Venus, the planet Venus, is not called Venus. Their traditional word is kinsei, which means gold star.
Aha.
Gold star.
Gotcha.
Or gold planet. And she goes, since he's from Venus, maybe he should be gold. And Tsuburaya went, I could have had a V8. And they painted him gold. So that's how Ghidra went fully gold, man. How he became Goldie Gold.
Right from the planet Venus to the what ended up on screen, which is it's so much of what Tsuburaya did it's legendary. It's left such a legacy in the fandom, and there's so many people who haven't even heard his name that it's he has laid down such this impression on filmmaking, and it's just it's amazing, and I give so much credit to what he and his team did, and not just the Godzilla side of things, but the television side of things with Ultraman, Ultra Q, Ultra 7, all of them. It's just fantastic, and I'd encourage people to pick up August's book as we close out here. Where can they find it, and where else would you like to point anyone for any kind of promotion, merch, or what have you?
Right. Well, I'm not really, I'm not really selling myself. But as far as the book goes, well, seriously, the book is sold out now. So we did 2 editions. It's completely sold out. I've seen prices go through the roof on eBay, which kind of makes me happy in one way, because I'm going, wow, it's really being sought after, Right. At the same time, I'm like going, well, who the hell can afford that price? There are people that want, $100, $200 for a copy, which to me is kind of insane. And we did 25,000 copies combined of both editions. No, I'm sorry. We did 30. It was 30,000 copies of that book from 2007 to the release in 2014, the re-release, the second edition combined. So, that's a lot of copies out there, and there are still people who are like, where I need to buy this book, and it's like, my publisher, for that book was Chronicle Books based here in San Francisco. And, I would encourage anybody who wants the book to bother them to go, hey, are you going to reprint that book? Because I didn't get a copy, and especially since I do cover the making of Ultra Q, Ultraman, and Ultra 7. That it would be of interest to the new wave of Ultraman fans, and also those who didn't catch the book or didn't know about it the first time around. It would be great if it got reprinted again. So I hope that'll happen. As far as what I'm doing, I'm on Facebook under my own name, and I'm out there on Twitter under my own name, and I have a blog that I haven't updated in a couple of years. In a couple of years, I had to take a break from the blog.
Yeah.
I had to beware of the blog.
Okay.
That's a really bad joke.
Beware the blog.
And Steve McQueen shaking his head and rolling in his grave.
I know.
And so that's the good, the bad, and Godzilla. There's still a lot of backlog stuff on there. I mean, I started putting that out there, I think, in 2008. I started doing that blog. So there's a lot of stories on there for like 10 years. And I might get back to it at some point. I'm trying to think about other projects that I want to do and all that. So, but if anybody needs to get in contact with me, you got Facebook and you have Twitter.
Okay. So best way is
just find it under my name.
Yep. Search August Ragone on Facebook or Twitter. I share a lot of things on the Monster Report. So, definitely check out what he's got. He's got some great posts about releases that are coming from Japan. I always love seeing the home video releases that are happening in Japan, or 4K content, and screenshots of restorations. And that's
there's
awesome.
Some exciting stuff happening, man.
Yeah.
There's some exciting stuff with all the 4K restorations of. I just got a copy of the 4K restoration. It's not available for commercial sale. They're showing a lot of these 4Ks on cable in Japan, on satellite cable.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll have friends in Japan record them for me and send them to me.
Oh, wow.
And so I've already seen some of these 4Ks, but they're 2K downscales of the 4Ks. And even in a 2K downscale, they look better. And I own like multiple iterations of these films from the Japanese versions on from the VHS days, Laserdisc to DVD, and then Toho Video's own Blu-rays. And these 4K restorations correct all the inherent problems and just blow the previous releases away entirely.
Wow.
In terms of just restoring the film, they're not making it look better than it ever was supposed to look. Some people fear that with 4K, like they're artificially doing things. No, what they're doing is they're going to the original negative. A lot of the home video releases came from what they would call inner positive, which is maybe a 2 or 3 down native duplicate of the original negative, camera negative. Mm-hmm. So they've gone back to the original negative source, and they've corrected. There was a big gap in Mothra. I just saw that.
Oh, wow.
And there was a big gap in Mothra where a pilot is sighting Mothra swimming towards Tokyo.
Yeah.
And he's reporting in, and there's this weird thing where his audio is out of sync with the visual.
Huh.
And that was a problem that happened after the camera negative and was never fixed because somebody at Toho went, who cares? So that has been corrected. That has been restored to its proper form.
Wow.
And more excitingly for somebody like me, maybe it's not a visual thing, but when Mothra originally opened in Japan in 1961, in 4 theaters in Tokyo and 4 theaters in Osaka, there was about a 1.5-minute overture before the movie started. That means an overture is a musical suite
right
before the movie starts.
Yeah.
Like that was kind of common in America back in the day.
Yeah, they don't do that.
Films like 2001.
Yeah. They haven't done that for years.
Yeah, they don't do those.
Yeah.
I think the only person that did it recently, I think it was Tarantino did it for The Hateful Eight.
Okay.
But anyway, so it's this piece of music that was written by the guy who did the music for the film, Yuji Koseki. That you don't hear anywhere else in the film. You hear a little bit of it in the Toho Mothra trailer from 1961.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, this music has been this opening overture that was only screened in 8 theaters in all of Japan in 1961. They've restored that.
Oh, wow.
It's just a blank screen because you're supposed to be sitting in the theater and the overture starts, right? And when the overture ends, the screen opens and the Toho logo appears, and the movie actually starts from that point.
Yeah.
But you're hearing music that's getting you in the mood. It's like the original King Kong had an overture,
right,
as well, and that was reconstructed for the DVD release in the United States a bunch of years back.
I saw the Star Trek motion picture. Fathom did a remastering of things, and they added some effects. They kept the overture in there, and that just gets you right in the mood for that opening credits, because it's even before the credits even start. That's another thing that's almost lost in movies these days, is opening credit scenes. That's it's an exciting time to be a kaiju fan, and going back and seeing the restoration of these films, and really hoping that they start making their way over here to the States would be fantastic. So I did have a question just real quick, and then we'll let you get going here. Where are you going to be at San Diego Comic-Con? There was a few questions about that.
Probably not.
Okay.
I have no plans to go to San Diego this year. I was going regularly for a few years, promoting the book, and then also working for, Famous Monsters of Filmland magazine.
Right. Yeah.
So I was pretty much there regularly for a number of years, and it wasn't the first time I'd been to San Diego, I think I'm not really kind of over the pandemic thing, and by that meaning,
sure,
I'm not afraid that I'm going to get I'm going to get the coup for something from being, at a place with 1,000 million people. In San Diego regularly used to get, like tens of thousands of people a year, I'm not really afraid of getting sick. I'm just kind of like not really feeling being in a really super crowded place for not health reasons, but for mental health reasons.
No, I get it.
Sometimes it's like getting back into thing. Like, do I really want to bother being in a sweaty place with 1,000 million people? I think I'm going to have to ease back into that. So, it's like, it's not like I'm afraid to do it. I'm just kind of like, meh.
Yeah, you'll see August out there. Maybe start with the smaller cons first, right? And go from there.
Oh yeah, it's like, I've done G Fest, for a number of years. I'm not going this year. But there's cons like G Fest and whatever else events. I'm kind of more interested. San Diego seems so really impersonal now too, since it's so huge, and that, there are people are going to be there. And you could have your cell phone and you're going like, hey, I'm going to be there. You're going to be there. Cool. We'll see you there. And you never see them, even if you're down there for 5 days. You'll run into people that you didn't expect to run into that, but then the people you're looking to reconnect with or whatever, you never see them the entire time. And everybody's like texting each other. And, it just seems kind of like, you're getting lost in this huge sea, of people and things. It's pretty exciting. I'll tell you that. It's exciting. It's energizing. One of my favorite things about San Diego Comic-Con has nothing to do with the actual physical con at the convention center, but it's like the street stuff that's going on, the stuff in the gas lamp district, and just hanging out in restaurants and watching your fellow nerds walk by all day.
Yeah.
Hey, Hank, what's up? And seeing people at the bar after hours, that kind of stuff was fun.
Yeah.
But it was really hard to tell. And it's like I kind of miss the intimacy of those, the conventions that, were used to be a regular thing where, maybe there's like 2,000 people there.
Right.
And not 20,000. And so, if you went to the hotel bar, you're gonna see people you're going to run into people at some point back and forth somewhere. So kind of miss that intimacy of being able to to run into people. But San Diego, I want to go back. I'm going to have to go back. I have friends that go every year that give me a hard time for not going back this year, but hopefully that'll be, in the future.
Give him some time, guys. You'll see him again. And we will, I'm definitely going to ask you again on another episode. We've been going for a long time, and you have been very generous with your time. I appreciate it. No, you are a wealth of knowledge, and I knew going into this, my list of questions, it was like, we're not going to get to these. I mean, August is he's going to be able to embellish, based on, a couple of words and a couple of thoughts. So thank you again for your time. You've been very generous.
Yeah, thank you.
Maybe next time we'll get you, with camera too, and with the pictures you gave me, just enthralled me, and I know that the audience was loving to see those pictures too. A lot of great comments, and we're looking forward to seeing after we get a release, we'll definitely have you on here again, or we'll have you on here again on another subject that you can embellish on too. And so thank you again.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And it's like, I just want to say thank you to you and for inviting me on the show, and anyone else out there. It's like, I talk to people sometimes and that do podcasts or other shows, and they'll go like, well, we never thought of approaching you because, maybe you're too busy or, whatever, thinking that I'm untouchable or something. It's like, no, man, I'll show up at a dog and pony show and stand on a milk carton, like, hey, what's up? I just like talking about this stuff. So, if anybody else is interested, I'm open to, to come on and talk about stuff. And, so yeah, maybe, I think maybe even though you did give me some of those questions before we did, before we went on, next time, just like maybe, instead of me just rambling, I can actually answer some of those questions. Just like,
it's all good. It's all good. Yeah.
Don't be afraid to go, I got a question. Let's hit this question and we'll just go from there. So I really appreciate, thank you. I really appreciate you letting me, ramble for as long as I have.
Yeah, you did awesome, and we're going to have you on again, and it's just been a pleasure, and let's keep in touch, and we will catch you all on another episode of the Monster Report in the near future. Good night, everyone, and thanks
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nick.